Greetings and peace, and thank you for listening. For those who are unable to read for themselves, I hope you'll be blessed and healed by the Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. I'm going to continue with Genesis chapter 16, Psalm 16, and from the Gospel of Matthew 16. And we might continue on from there with other readings from the same section in the Bible. Genesis 16. The birth of Ishmael. Abram's wife Sarai had borne him no child, but she had an Egyptian slave girl called Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, "Listen now, since Yahweh has kept me from having children, go to my slave girl. Perhaps I shall get children through her." And Abram took Sarai's advice. Thus, after Abram had lived in the land of Canaan for 10 years, Sarai took Hagar, her Egyptian slave girl, and gave her to Abram as his wife. He went to Hagar, and she conceived. And once she knew she had conceived, her mistress counted for nothing in her eyes. Then Sarai said to Abraham, "This outrage done to me is your fault. It was I who put my slave girl into your arms, but now she knows that she has conceived. I count for nothing in her eyes. Yahweh judge between me and you." "Very well," Abram said to Sarai, "your slave girl is at your disposal. Treat her as you think fit." Sarai accordingly treated her so badly that she ran away from her. The angel of Yahweh found her by the spring in the desert, the spring on the road to Shur. He said, "Hagar, slave girl of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?" "I am running away from my mistress Sarai," she replied. The angel of Yahweh said to her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." The angel of Yahweh further said to her, "I shall make your descendants too numerous to be counted." Then the angel of Yahweh said to her, "Now you have conceived and will bear a son, and you shall name him ISHMAEL, for Yahweh has heard your cries of distress. A wild donkey of a man he will be, his hand against every man, and every man's hand against him, living his life in defiance of all his kinsmen." Hagar gave a name to Yahweh who had spoken to her. "You are El Roi," by which she meant, "Did I not go on seeing here after him who sees me?" This is why the well is called the well of Lahai Roi. It is between Kadesh and Bered. Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave his son, born by Hagar, the name Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. We're now going to read Psalm 16, Yahweh my heritage. Protect me, O God, in you is my refuge. To Yahweh I say, you are my Lord. My happiness is in none of the sacred spirits of the earth. They only take advantage of all who love them. People flock to their teeming idols. Never shall I pour libations to them, never take their names on my lips. My birthright, my cup is Yahweh. You alone hold my lot secure. The measuring line marks out for me a delightful place. My birthright is all I could wish. I bless Yahweh, who is my counselor. Even at night my heart instructs me. I keep Yahweh before me always. For with him at my right hand, nothing can shake me. So my heart rejoices, my soul delights, my body too will rest secure. For you will not abandon me to Sheol. You cannot allow your faithful servant to see the abyss. You will teach me the path of life, unbounded joy in your presence. At your right hand, delight forever. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I continue to read from the Gospel of Matthew. The Pharisees ask for a sign from heaven. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16. The Pharisees and Sadducees came and put him to the test. They asked if he would show them a sign from heaven. He replied, "In the evening you say it will be fine, there's a red sky, and in the morning stormy weather. Today the sky is red and overcast. You know how to read the face of the sky, but you cannot read the signs of the times. It is an evil and unfaithful generation asking for a sign, and the only sign it will be given is the sign of Jonah." And he left them and went off. The yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. The disciples, having crossed to the other side, had forgotten to take any food. Jesus said to them, "Keep your eyes open and be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees." And they said amongst themselves, "It is because we've not brought any bread." Jesus knew it, and he said, "You have so little faith. Why are you talking among yourselves about having no bread? Do you still not understand? Do you not remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000 and the number of baskets you collected? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000 and the number of baskets you collected? How could you fail to understand that I was not talking about bread? What I said was, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Then they understood that he was telling them to be on their guard, not against yeast for making bread, but against the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Peter's profession of faith, his pre-eminence. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he put this question to his disciples: "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, some Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. But you," he said, "who do you say I am?" Then Simon Peter spoke up and said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Simon, son of Jonah, you are a blessed man, because it was no human agency that revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. So I now say to you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my community, and the gates of the underworld can never overpower it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he gave the disciples strict orders not to say to anyone that he was the Christ. The first prophecy of the Passion. From then onwards, Jesus began to make it clear to his disciples that he was destined to go to Jerusalem and suffer grievously at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and to be put to death, and to be raised up on the third day. Then taking him aside, Peter started to rebuke him. Heaven preserve you, Lord, this must not happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are an obstacle in my path, because you are thinking not as God thinks, but as human beings do. The condition of following Christ. Then Jesus said to his disciples, If anyone wants to be a follower of mine, let him renounce himself and take up his cross and follow me. Anyone who wants to save his life will lose it, but anyone who loses his life for my sake will find it. What then will anyone gain by winning the whole world and forfeiting his life? Or what can anyone offer in exchange for his life? For the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he will reward each one according to his behavior. In truth, I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming with his kingdom. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. We will continue with the readings. We'll go back to Genesis and we will read Genesis 17. My apologies for the delay. I have taken the marker out. The Covenant and Circumcision. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 17. When Abram was 99 years old, Yahweh appeared to him and said, I am El Shaddai. Live in my presence. Be perfect, and I shall grant a covenant between myself and you, and make you very numerous. And Abram bowed to the ground. God spoke to him as follows, For my part, this covenant with you, you will become the father of many nations, and you are no longer to be called Abram. Your name is to be Abraham, for I am making you father of many nations. I shall make you exceedingly fertile. I shall make you into nations, and your issue will be kings. And I shall maintain my covenant between myself and you, and your descendants after you, generation after generation, as a covenant in perpetuity, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. And to you and to your descendants after you, I shall give the country where you are now immigrants, the entire land of Canaan, to own in perpetuity, and I shall be their God. God further said to Abraham, You for your part must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, generation after generation. This is my covenant which you must keep between myself and you, and your descendants after you. Every one of your males must be circumcised. You must circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and that will be the sign of the covenant between myself and you. As soon as he is 8 days old, every one of your males, generation after generation, must be circumcised, including slaves born within the household or bought from a foreigner, not of your descent. Whether born within the household or bought, they must be circumcised. My covenant must be marked in your flesh as a covenant in perpetuity. The uncircumcised male, whose foreskin has not been circumcised, that person must be cut off from his people, for he has broken my covenant. Furthermore, God said to Abraham, as regards your wife Sarai, you must not call her Sarai, but Sarah. I shall bless her, and moreover give you a son by her. I shall bless her, and she will become nations. Kings of peoples will issue from her. Abraham bowed to the ground, and he laughed, thinking to himself, is a child to be born to a man 100 years old? And will Sarah have a child at the age of 90? Abraham said to God, may Ishmael live in your presence, that will be enough. But God replied, yes, your wife Sarah will bear you a son, whom you must name Isaac, and I shall maintain my covenant with him, a covenant in perpetuity, to be his God and the God of his descendants after him. For Ishmael too I grant you your request. I hereby bless him and will make him fruitful and exceedingly numerous. He will be the father of 12 princes, and I shall make him into a great nation. But my covenant I shall maintain with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear you at this time next year. When he had finished speaking to Abraham, God went up from him. Then Abraham took his son Ishmael, all the slaves born in his household or whom he had bought, in short, all the males among the people of Abraham's household, and circumcised their foreskins that same day, as God had said to him. Abraham was 99 years old when his foreskin was circumcised. Ishmael his son was 13 years old when his foreskin was circumcised. Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised on the very same day, and all the men of his household, those born in the household and those bought from foreigners, were circumcised with him. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. We're now going to continue reading. I'm going to read from the Psalms. Psalm 17, the plea of the innocent. This is a prayer of David. Listen, Yahweh, to an upright cause. Pay attention to my cry. Lend an ear to my prayer. My lips free from deceit. From your presence will issue my vindication. Your eyes fixed on what is right. You probe my heart. Examine me at night. You test me by fire and find no evil. I have not sinned with my mouth, as most people do. I have treasured the word from your lips. My steps never stray from the paths you lay down. From your tracks, so my feet never stumble. I call upon you, God, for you answer me. Turn your ear to me. Hear what I say. Show the evidence of your faithful love, Saviour of those who hope in your strength against attack. Guard me as the pupil of an eye. Shelter me in the shadow of your wings. From the presence of the wicked who would maltreat me, deadly enemies are closing in on me, engrossed in themselves. They are mouthing arrogant words. They are advancing against me. Now they are closing in, watching for the chance to hurl me to the ground, like a lion preparing to pounce, like a young lion crouching in ambush. Arise, Yahweh, confront him and bring him down. With your sword save my life from the wicked. Yahweh, from mortals by your hand, from mortals whose part in life is in this world. You fill their bellies from your store. Their children will have all they desire, and leave their surplus to their children. But I, in my uprightness, will see your face, and when I awake, I shall be filled with the vision of you. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. May God bless you, give you his healing and peace.